All right, final game of the day. We've got KT Rolster playing against Weibo Gaming. The return of the familiar faces who have all been at Worlds. Xiao Hu coming back, the Shy. Obviously, I mean, they've been in here. This is their third game, but the entire roster here, some from Afrika Freaks. We've got pieces of Griffin as well on this KT roster. So it'll be exciting to see what they put together. It's, I believe, one of our first China versus Korea matches. We'll see how this game goes. KT has been strong all season long. They've looked good in the tournament as well. We'll see if they put it together for themselves. Now, Poppy, Maokai, Callista leading off, and then a Alistar, Zaya, and Rakan. So we're going to have a little bit of a pinch in the pool. Blue 1 gets Kaisa, forcing Weibo to come up with an answer. What are you going to do in response to my Kaisa pick? They end up giving up Orianna, Rumble, Jarvan. This is like one of the best combinations you can get for this tournament. A lot about these explosive team fights. So this should favor them. And then on the second half of the draft, with the supports and junglers being pinched, we end up with Viego and K'Sante. Now, K'Sante can have a really difficult time against Rumble, especially since his preferred itemization is Iceborne Gauntlet, and it does nothing against Rumble at all. Also having Viego here, if we can create some sort of surprise plays using the fog and using Nico potentially with a hidden Pop Blossom, you might be able to get some good effects. But otherwise, this is a draft win for Weibo. But let's find out how it goes. Let's check out the game. Love to see these early cinematics. Love the K'Sante skins, by the way. They put in a lot of good work on that. We see the Victoria's Secret Sivir skin. Was that the one that was designed by... I don't think it was Victoria's Secret. I think one of these prestige skins was designed by like Ralph Lauren or someone. If you guys know, let me know. You can put the timestamp 050 in the comments if you know which one it was. We'll see if we get any action in the early game. It looks like Nautilus is going for a fast sweeper. This is, of course, much different in this event than it's ever been in the past. Here's the runes, a little snapshot of the runes. You used to be able to do that, and by the time you came back to lane 130 is when you'd have the sweeping lens online. That is no longer the case. So what this tends to mean is that you think that you can get a push, and then you can go into a roam timer. We'll see whether or not they opt for something like that. Viego starting Wolves, very interesting. Always prefer to see people start the small camps rather than go opposite. Keen trying to shield this camp, so lots to talk about in this early game. What I was saying about bot is Nautilus Kaisa, what you're going to try to do, no leash, they're going to push, versus the leash. Sivir, of course, not caring whether or not you leash or not, is always going to be able to one-shot the wave anyways. Nautilus and Kaisa might look to try to push this, stack 3 waves, and go. Kaisa can use that time to get a dagger or a longsword for herself, and then Nautilus can roam, already having the sweeping lens in the inventory ready to roll. You can see that it still has this long timer coming up. Now, Rumble should be able to get the push for himself and has all the pressure into K'Sante here. Now we're going to see whether or not we have Orianna and Jarvan making any sort of play together. We have level 2s gotten together. The Shy going for pressure forward. Opting for a crash here. Is he actually going to roam first? All right, this is playing against Viego, potentially doing a same side. So 245 tends to be the timer that three camp ganks come up. So your ward will still be good against four camp ganks, but this ward will be down in time for the second rotation. So if Viego full clears, goes for his respawn wolves, and ends up going pathing this way, then we will see a potential exploit there. Viego should be looking with this spawn to take all 6 of these camps, might go 7 for Scuttle, and might check for the Gromp respawn, knowing that there was a leash for the Jarvan, means that you have a slightly faster Gromp clear, and that means that you might look to go for it. But honestly, I expect him to actually take Scuttle and recall, and maybe go through mid first, but I think that he's going to want to take advantage of this ward going down in 90 seconds. Rumble getting the crash for themselves, beautifully played the Shy, just not missing animation seemingly here. Keen getting really low, also getting low on his mana, has brought biscuits, so we'll have that biscuit power play available. Viego opts to swap fields, clearing the jungle so quickly. By the way, guys, 330, you see how he was able to go 1 2 3 4 5 6 and make it back to top Scuttle pre 330. That is inspiring. If you guys want to play jungle, make sure you're practicing your roots. That is one of the few things that we can still get out of the practice tool or custom game. You should basically always get those paths right. Weiwei going and taking a quick peek at the Gromp to see whether or not that's the final camp, or if it was the first camp, potentially. Gromp obviously spawning 10 seconds later than blue. You wouldn't expect that to be respawned, but by stepping up, you gain vision of the camp. Therefore, you'll get this timer. He sees that it's on a 10-second timer. Now, Weiwei can solve the problem. He can solve the entire puzzle. He knows exactly what was taken and what order was taken. We're going to see 1 into 2, 1, 2, 3, and then back to the bot side. So now he has all of the timers in his mind and will know whether or not there's an exploit available. If you want to dominate your games as a jungler, you absolutely want to be familiar with those timers. You want to get used to all the different paths that are available, which champions can go them, and then you can take advantage of them, completely take over that jungle matchup just by bleeding their resources. You take more, they can't really answer. All right, so here's the window we were talking about. Rumble's ult is down, but Jarvan's ult is up. Or sorry, the ward's. Rumble's ward is down, but Jarvan placed a new one, which means that they have sight of Viego. He opts to just take another recall, spike himself just a little bit for the stats. This is so that he can fight against Jarvan. Knowing the paths, look at this, right? Just small things like this, saying, hey, I've got an extra longsword compared to you. This small adaptation saying, all right, I could path all the way to my Raptors, or I could take 8 seconds longer doing it, but also pick up a component, can be the difference on whether or not we get a fight here. Now, Viego with a fast 5, he's there, Jarvan as well. These guys wasting no time. Getting those respawns on those camps is the key to hitting your level spikes quickly. Nautilus is coming in. Viego's got the inside track, and we've got the fight. We'll see whether or not they take this. They might opt not to because they're unsure about the rest of the timer. I'm surprised that they didn't go for more there. So well played by Weibo to survive that. We've got the 6 from Orianna. BDD also 6, was able to get the push first and roam over. We're going to see whether or not he pretends. I'd normally prefer that you pretend to be one of the other champions, but this will be okay. Comes on over. They get the upgrade, but Jarvan gets first blood somehow. My goodness. How did you allow that to happen? Lehens, you're helping out my crystal ball with the most deaths on Nautilus, but man, that should never be a play turned on its head right there. It means that Weibo gets an assisted kill as well as a push in mid lane, and it means that Orianna's going to be slightly better coming out of base than she otherwise would have. You saw that Nico has a lot of threat in this lane, just has a very nice laning phase. Plus Viego pathing near mid meant that Orianna had to play a little bit safer. Merc treads first into Nico, very common, just like it is into Syndra. It's a champion that relies on their long distance spell to hold you down in order to get the rest of their damage and the rest, all of its magic. Anytime that's the case, early Merc treads can be very good. It allows you to dodge more spells. It allows you to prevent chip damage that comes in, and it makes sure that any all-in is negated by an extra tick of the Blossom. They just re-engage right here, pop onto Nautilus, trading 1 life, well worth it. And 4 people invested, 3 are there. Kai'Sa actually hitting those minions. Those, even though you could go for those last hits, it did not look like those ranged casters were actually taking aggro, which means that they could have held a push for themselves. Perhaps opting to say, hey, we're numbers up at the moment, so I can use that for a crash, try to crash a wave and get a shop off because they're sitting on Noon Quiver money. So that's the decision that she makes there. Now, Sivir with a pretty interesting build. So I'm totally down with Cull first on Sivir. You don't ever need to create a fight. You can just wash these waves back and forth. The Shy wishes that he had gotten that facing the other direction before he got locked up, for sure. It means that Keen's got a huge win for himself. The Shy's going to buy the maximum amount of time, deal the most amount of damage, and kill the minion wave to ensure that he doesn't lose out too much. Now, I absolutely love that we have rotations prior to the Herald. It means that we're going to have the big advantage coming into it. Is Viego going to solo this camp, and are they going to trade Dragon? At this event, Herald is much better than Dragons. Even second Herald, a lot of people consider it maligned, that it's not so good. But the second Herald, it is worth a kill just for killing it, and you get another threat at permanent structure to the base. And that is always something that needs to be accounted for. It is much more valuable than getting yourself 1 dragon. That skill capped suggests that the prio in the early game is first Herald greater than dragon, so H1, but then it says D2 is greater than H2, and I think that that's just wrong. because Dragon's just fake. Dragon Soul is not the be all and end all. People think it just ends games. Hey, look, this thing wins 91% of the time. Well, that's because your team was winning, and that's why you got all the dragons. Beautiful Pop Blossom here. We've got it lined up for a double root. The E is beautiful. Love to see those plays from Neeko, and aiming, taking the limit test, not even the limit test, but taking Kai'Sa to everything that she can do. Hits the W at range, pops over with our ultimate, and finishes off the kill. So very nicely done. Meanwhile, Viego getting action done in the mid lane, collecting 2 plates for himself. Means that he's going to be spiked. We're going to see a fast Divine Sunderer here. Flash R into EQ, that tends to be the answer. We see flash forward, beautifully done here by Weibo to get this proactive play. If they're able to trade this, they can consider that a win. Lehen's actually feeling very strong here. He has 2 minions helping him. He actually should have been willing to continue that, but the pings come in that Orianna is on her way, so he does step back. KT just getting everything out of this so far. Better kills, better timing. The only thing that happened, that one flipped kill, they would have preferred to not happen, but they have turned this into the best possible situation. Absolutely love it. This is one of the simplest things you can do, and yet one of the most effective you can ever do. Just Pop Blossom, using the invisibility to get further, being a surprise. Nados actually missing the Q even, but it doesn't matter. They still have enough to kill Crisp. Beautifully done by KT. And frankly, that's what I think this draft was going to have to come down to. It had to be individual outplays and singular Neeko strategies to get you out. Because if we do get into this end game, if the game is even and we have Jarvan, Orianna, Rumble, we're always going to favor them into these big team fights. Even Sivir has nice synergy with big AoE damage for those fights. Have to love them in those comps unless we can get ahead and we can play for picks, right? These champions play for picks. Even K'Sante can play for position and all out to draw you into your team. Everyone on this team has capacity to follow up on the plate as well, which is a nice, well-rounded out comp. K'Sante opting to get the 1 Null Magic Mantle and then continue his build normally. He's still going to go for Iceborne. This is something that we didn't see from, I believe it was Summit, that just built Iceborne Gauntlet into Rumble. And it's like, okay, like you're just going to get ripped apart. Like when you're not even allowed to step up for a Sheen proc, how is this item ever going to do anything for you? So we see a little bit of an adaptation here, getting a tiny little piece. We'll see whether or not they go for Merc Treads early, which will help with preventing damage, but also help with some of this and also getting away from Jarvan or repositioning if needed. Leona's not going to be looking to stun K'Sante much unless it's post all out and they're trying to one-shot him. But we could easily see I would like to see a fast Merc Treads. If this is your plan, go Merc Treads and then finish your Iceborne Gauntlet if that's what you insist on going upon. Jak'Sho, the Protean, basically a forgotten item, hasn't been picked much at all. I'm trying to think if we saw any. We saw Poppy earlier today with it. That makes a lot of sense. You've got a lot of CC. You can hold people down long enough to get that effect. Oh, Cuz finding the outsmite. We have a flash in here. Beautiful play by BDD, showing us everything that Neeko can do. One-sided on all accounts. Oh my goodness. Now the Shy trying to win this fight back by laying down the red carpet, but it just gets juggled and there's no extra play. Now Cuz gets to take the body of the Shy. Completely winning fights. I love to see the proactive plays from Neeko. Interesting angles. We're seeing all the things you can do using invisibility while coming forward. And then flashing with the Pop Blossom channel already going off means that she's able to get that for herself. Now we're going to see Rocket Belt from Neeko so she can reposition. This is a pivotal part of the kit. Beautiful job by Cuz, recognizing that a flash stun was all it would take to allow Neeko to get into position to follow up. Team is not able to move into branching positions. This is a really bad spot for red team to be fighting with this at their back. They'd really like the fight to get into this corridor where then they have the escapes. But by then they've already dropped 2. And another advantage to KT Rollstorm. Kai'Sa's getting enormous. It looks like we're going to have a Stormrazor Rageblade build. Our second favorite build on Kai'Sa for this environment. See if we get the early E here from Lehen's. The most Nautiluses put 1 point in E. I know we talk about it a bunch, but Using your support ability to make the last hitting easy. Oh my god, if he dodges and turns this fight, this would be insane. We have Neeko coming in, but she doesn't quite have the ultimate, but it doesn't matter. They do pop Jarvan right off the bat, which means they're going to get this dragon for free. Multiple plates to their advantage. Keen getting first strike on this turret. He's going to be able to cover over it. Rumble will not get the same amount of damage down, which means that they have the extra dragon. They have the extra turret. They've got the extra tempo. They even have extra ultimates available. Well, 5 versus 5. They'll be okay in that area. But you see the difference. The Shy, because he's second to the push, means that he's going to have to back off and play for the wave. This means that KT has inside track for the Herald. Now, anytime that you see Kai'Sa on the map, as long as you're just auto-attacking, by the way, if you have a Neeko on your team, be willing to use less attacks, or less spells, I should say, and use more attacks. Because as long as you're just attacking, they don't necessarily know that you're not Neeko. They can track the amount of damage on the on hits and things like that. Like, there's other ways, but again, constantly asking the opponent's questions, and the more difficult you make the answer, the more chances that you have of them making a fumble or making a play that you can exploit. In this case, yeah, it's pretty simple puzzle, but constantly asking it. That's why we talk about it with the minions. Count the minion waves. Like, you think it's an easy thing to do, but realistically, when the minion wave's coming, you can't see the fourth minion until the first one's already in threat range, especially with the rocket belt. And also, if you're forcing them to look at every single wave as it approaches to find out whether or not there's a Neeko there, that can be supremely taxing as the game goes on. Let's see this dive. They end up pulling out on it. That was a neat little trick. You see how Kai'Sa aimed her W right at the same moment that Nautilus was coming up? It was an attempt to be like, hey, I'm going to throw a spell using potentially the auto attack animation. You can cancel it yourself. And then you can say, all right, are you spell shielding? Wait, you hit my W instead. Or even just Nautilus just faking it. Oh my goodness. If Leona had hit, this might have been even worse, honestly. But yeah, you ask questions. Constantly put the pressure on them. That's why rotations are good. That's why tempo is good. This is a tempo rift. You have to go over and make plays constantly threaten, because every time that you just set back and just go back to status quo, that status quo is the lowest level of I'm getting all the resources on the map. You are never getting any more than that. You are only ever getting that. And the other team can say, okay, we know where everybody is. All right, now we can choose our play. And whoever makes those proactive plays more often is going to have a better chance at going forward. I love what Keen's doing right here. You see how he aimed his Q to only hit that caster, wanting to keep this wave intact a little bit to keep it in the same position. Could have even gotten away with not killing the caster, and then the caster probably would have killed the cannon, could have profited, but it ends up giving that to Sivir. But the end result, you see how this wave now has 9 or 10 minions in it? It's a little bit stronger. By being a little bit stronger and by not pushing, you force Sivir to stay a little bit further back. She walks up for a Q and then she immediately retreats. And that allows your team to go into the northern quadrant. It means they're going to have Rift Herald for themselves. It means they're going to get this turret for themselves. They're probably going to get a game-wiping fight out of this, it looks like. Maybe they just get the 1 kill. But already we're looking at the Herald going to pop this. And BDD is in position for a Pop Blossom. We see Weiwei using the sweeping lens to try to get there. A bunch of upfront damage, and you have to step back. And the Herald dies. You don't get any of the return gold. Look at the gold spike, 7k advantage. This is how you do it, guys. This is a masterclass in macro. It's also a masterclass in Neeko. They're playing this champion exactly the way that it can, like all the limits. You're getting everything out of this champion that you can. Absolutely beautiful to see. Now, taking stock, we've got Baron coming up in 150. That is definitely KT's. The question will be how they decide to go for it. They may opt to go for Dragon as well, just because they're strong enough to fight for it. With this big 7k gold lead, we see a teleport being used in bottom, and we see the Abyssal Mask. Abyssal Mask for 1.5 champions. Also, it directly counters the Rumble, and it'll be good here. This is much better in this game than it was the last time that we saw. Actually, we've seen 3 Casantes with Abyssal Masks now. It's a great item. It's the best item in the game on this patch. Or I should say best legendary item. Radiant Virtue probably takes the cake for best item overall. But using the Abyssal Mask much better when your team has multiple sources and their team has multiple sources, where you can go and that drain has a meaningful effect. When Summit built it, I believe it was just against a Liandry's Orianna, and she was literally the only AP source on the entire team. And maybe they might have also only had 1.5 tops champions that dealt magic damage as well. Here we go. Nico pretending, gets the flash. Rocket Belt used. All right, good dodges here. You end up getting the root, but they might consider this to be a little bit of an overreach. They've gone pretty far forward. Rumble is going to feel very strong here. He's got half of his abilities on there. He's got his good heat energy. Good heat usage means that he's very strong for this fight. If you're playing Rumble in your solo queue games, well, let's watch the rest of this fight. Keen looking pretty strong. He's getting pretty low, so he might look for the all-out. Ends up doing it, but pops his resistances, so he ends up getting popped by Orianna and Sivir in the combo there. So yeah, a little bit of an overreach. The flash by Xiaohu to survive just enough. They get so many resources away, and then they turn the fight. A big part of that being Rumble teleporting in. So what I wanted to mention, your heat, all right? Your spells have extra effect here, and then you can go all the way up. And they've normalized the value of the heat. I believe it's 20 per spell that you cast. Before you teleport, cast your 3 spells. You go 3 spells, and then you teleport, and that will allow you to show up with your heat like this. If you don't do that, you're going to show up with no heat. That means that your spells will not be empowered, and you won't get any extra effect. So instead, doing it the way that the Shy did, you cast your spells, then you arrive with your teleport, probably even with a Nimbus Cloak, meaning that they can get so much of that damage out up in front and with the heat already in the right place. Now, Weibo had the option of sticking around and using this prio to stick around for Baron. It looks like they ended up using it for nothing, just for recalls. They were afraid that if it came down to sieging for a situation, they might still be weaker to the respawns, especially this early in the game. And if the problem with what they just did, though, they recalled, and now, yes, you got a little bit more gold in your wallet, but you're still really far behind in that, and you're now losing this dragon, and you're going to lose all of the wards that you put in front of the pit. You're going to see Nautilus start taking all these down. Expect them to start with a shallow line of wards, and then as they push mid, they'll look to push that ward line up. Lots of wards down there, though. Nautilus getting his fair share, opting for the very shallow ones to start, right? So empty your clip, then go and reload. By the time you come back from reloading, you'll have your sweeping lens available. You'll also be able to buy a new control ward with all the gold that you got for killing the wards. And then you can come back and look to press forward again. K'Sante keeping his teleport. You see how he comes down here. Has the Abyssal Mask done, by the way. So he can actually win this matchup because we just have this item here. You're going to be stealing the resistances from the Rumble, basically stacking up to a tremendous amount. You can take that fight just being so much stronger with the 2 kills and the 2 assists compared to Rumble's just 1. Also, you have the extra 10 CS, and we talked about all the turrets that they've killed as well. Now, K'Sante pushes the wave, moves over, all right? You don't just sit glued here. You take advantage of this area. You say, all right, I'm going to muscle my way in. I'm going to see any kind of rotations. Maybe I kill some control wards. Maybe I place a ward to defend myself for my own split. And then I can use that information. The fact that I know no one's here means I'm very comfortable taking this wave. And now you're going to see him come commit over. Next wave is going to get pushed in, and we're going to see this line move up. And then that should be enough for the Baron to be taken by KT. Don't like that they hard shoved this wave. This means you're just giving it to the Orianna. I know why they do it. They're moving quickly so that the team can move as one. You see how they're moving together. They push the wave and then together they're moving in. But you can just hold that for 5 seconds, hold that wave, and then the threat of that becomes immense, and you start stacking it, and then suddenly Orianna, you give up your 10 seconds at the beginning. Orianna's going to give that up later because she has to wait for that wave to actually get to her, and it's going to be bigger, and it's going to have a cannon. This stage of the game, we're pre-25 minutes, so we're still dealing with 1 cannon every other wave. So if you stack any 2 waves, you'll have a cannon, and any wave that has a cannon as it approaches the turret will be a much more significant threat. So you want to be careful to not just push willy-nilly. It relieves pressure when you do. All right, Lehen's stepping forward. Keen is moving into Fog of War, so now the pressure is on Weibo. They have to be very careful about how they move, how they progress for these waves. Kai'Sa already dumped one wave in, which means that she's going to have to fast push this next one if they want to make any play. It looks like they're calling it off. They're not actually going to try for it. They're not confident in their macro pushes, which means that Kai'Sa ends up just pushing again. Viego comes into the eastern quadrant. They're going to collect more. This is another way to expand your lead. You've sort of kept Weibo in prison over here because they can't let you get any further. They have to defend this area, otherwise they will end up giving up Baron. By forcing them into that prison, it means that you're trading wave and trading wave, but meanwhile K'Sante is doing damage to this turret and they're able to collect, so they can claim a little advantage, like, hey, we've got these camps and you don't. But it's pretty small because no one's been collecting this either. Not that they should. This should be a lesson to everyone in solo queue. Just because nothing's happening does not mean it's time to go pick up all your camps. You have to be in position for your team in macro. You notice that Viego is not going Krugs. Going Krugs is inting your team, because you'll be committing yourself to that position for much too long. Viego takes Wolves and rejoins. Doesn't even take Gromp, right? That's how important. Macro is a matter of seconds. You have to be in the right position at the right time. Buzz feeling himself right now. Stepping up into the vision here. Kind of dangerous. This was before the waves. Here we go with a stacked push up in top lane. Finally, they get a stacked push. Sivir or Orianna has to go answer it. And they've got a succinct push in the mid lane. No, they already gave up that wave. K'Sante steps up. Expect to see a vision in the wave here. Orianna's can pick up the wave. Aiming in Keen, just coming up, snapping this. Like what Light's doing, a little bit of chip damage, and then they'll go forward and go and try to clear the wave. I suppose this is what they were waiting for, guys. This actually makes it all make sense. They're like, all right, we don't need to win. We don't need to do anything. I'm pretty close to my third item. Now you have all three evolutions on the Kai'Sa. Now her poke is online. Now her all-in is online. This is a tremendously high damage build from here on out. And so now they can truly claim an advantage, right? They're up a completed item here. They're up a completed item here. They're behind on the Orianna, but that's okay. You're up a full item here, and you're up a completed item versus Leona. So this is your point of strength. If you're Weibo, you have to make it happen now. This is the window, because if you let these guys recall and finish items, then they're going to be back at the same point as you. It won't matter that you have 5k gold if it's not ineffectual items. Like, for example, here, Sivir allowed to recall and get Last Whisper at only the cost of a dragon. That's a pretty big win for them. If it does come out to the fight, the fact that they have Pen and Pen means that they'll be able to hit a little bit harder, especially through the K'Sante. Now, Randuin's Omen on K'Sante, we're basically seeing the Summit build, except it's just so much better. It's not against Ashe, all right? Against Ashe, Randuin's Omen has a mitigated effect because Ashe's critical value gets converted over into extra slow, right? She's not dealing that much extra damage with her crits, whereas Sivir is relying on it, and she's got multiple auto attacks going off in the fight, so multiple instances where she can go for it. Let's see if Nautilus aggroes the Baron here. That's definitely a play that you can do. Okay, opts not to. So much better in this game. Now Randuin's is completed. They go back and they pick up stopwatches. This is the moment. They said, let's build it. Let's build it. We'll patiently build. Notice how they do it. It's over the course of 6 minutes. We're talking about 2 dragons dying since they've had this monumental lead for themselves. And only now are they going to try to express it. I hope. If they don't, then that means that they don't know how to do this, or they're just too afraid of Weibo's teamfight possibility. Right? We talk about the synergies of these R's here. That's going to get worse if these guys get to level 16. So the clock is ticking right now for KT. I absolutely want them to start this Baron, force them to come into you, and then try to punish with the poke from Kai'Sa, from the trapping with Viego, Nautilus, and Nico, and potentially even K'Sante just moving someone over in the fight. Pretty soon, Rumble's going to feel fine in this matchup as well, especially since Randuin's Omen does not affect them at all. They're going to be able to take the amplified damage from Demonic. Already has the plated steel caps, so Rumble will start fighting back pretty quickly, opting to not risk anything right now, wants to be super strong going into these fights. But this has to be the moment if you're KT. Finally, they pull the trigger. Jarvan using his Demacian Standard to get vision in the pit. Keen rotating over. Rumble comes as well. You see how he's keeping himself at that middling heat value. They end up going for a bit of chip damage here. Keen with a dash forward and a Q3. Team tries to pull out. They accept the chip damage, come back in, kill this ward. Keen will stay on the outside. I'd rather see Nico on the outside pretending to be K'Sante, and I'd rather see K'Sante in the pit. Frankly, is this actually Kai'Sa? Why did Kai'Sa go all the way over here? What? All right, Sivir always outpushes Kai'Sa, means Sivir gets prio, which means Weibo gets back into the river for the first time in 10 minutes. They have access to the Northside River. That's a huge win for them. KT just not getting the fights that they're looking for, not getting the pressure that they're looking for. I don't know what sort of situation they want to have happen, whether or not they're saying, hey, there are no good fights, we'll just continue to bleed them out. Ooh, there's a big one. Crisp's ultimate is down. Is that enough for them to want to pull the trigger? I don't know. We're approaching, we already have level 16 on Orianna. That ability got buffed by what, 150 damage at its rank 3? So that is a significant chunk of damage that command shockwave will be dealing. The Shy is going to look to lay the red carpet along this sort of line. You want to make sure that you're hitting people that are trying to go over the pit. Let's see if we get any sort of position. We have an all out into a Q3. Nico Pop Blossom means that they get the Jarvan. Cuz is staying in the pit. And they are kiting the rest of the fight. Let's see if they go back in. They do go back in. Cuz was on it the entire time. Rumble using the ultimate on nothing. Chip damage onto BDD. It's enough to maybe get Xiaohu to find this kill on Cuz. But maybe he just gets out with the extra speed along these walls. Gets to safety. Orianna's trying to speed herself up. And it's just in time for the dash. But the ult command shockwave. I mean, that's what you want. If you're KT, that's what you want. Single target ultimates being used. Orianna's ult on one target. Rumble's ult on one target. But look at this. We get a continuation on the fight. Aiming not quite in position. Flashes forward to get the good Q. We'll see if he goes forward. Did they get the memo that Orianna doesn't have the reset? Nico doesn't step forward either. A little bit of a misstep. KT looking vulnerable, making some mistakes around in this endgame execution. So Weibo's going to be back in the game, and now they're level 16. This is super threatening. This is the part of the game where this should flip on its head. They've gotten some gold back for themselves. They lost the Baron, and it's alive on, I believe, just Viego and Nico. But that is enough to get it into 2 different lanes if they want. I just like that ultimate. Just I don't feel like it does anything. A little bit of chip damage and that's it. Xiaohu ends up going and using command shockwave. Misses and throws the R because he just knows he needs it in response to the dash. This was BDD after they came back into the fight, right? Yeah, so he must have teleported back in. Keen taking a big chunk. This is, putting the Rumble forward might have been a bit of an overstep. We get the Rocket Belt forward. Aiming using Flash right there. Also didn't quite need that. Even if you don't have your ultimate available, you could have just walked up and cast his Q and then saved the the Flash to reposition for that fight, or even especially to dodge Sivir. Because Sivir, so much of her damage is indexed in that Q, and if you dodge to the side of that, there's no way for her to reposition it effectively in time to get the damage back onto you. All right, level 16's online. All of the carries, the junglers will be next. Viego's actually going to hit 16 well before Jarvan. Jarvan has been 1-5 this game. Also debating about what to go next. It should be an Abyssal Mask. That is your job. Again, for the same reason that it's good on K'Sante, it's good on you. It'll prevent some of this upfront damage. It takes about, with this build, about 30% of Kai'Sa's damage. But significantly, or importantly, I should say, it takes away the portion that is her big chunk, right? That big execute. It takes her a little bit of time to stack the passive. You might be able to survive a little bit longer into that situation, but he's just so far behind, right? Not having access to the next one. Meanwhile, we've got 3, 3.5, 3, 2 and 2 halves. Just big item leads, and they actually pick him off again. Weiwei, 6 deaths. Orianna trying her best. Xiaohu has been on this stage. He wants this championship. Experienced veteran ends up throwing away his life, or the Weiwei throws away their life, meaning that we're going to have another syncopated respawn time where it's going to allow KT to get all the pressure on the map. They're going to control the middle and bot waves and then control the vision in this area, right? Adjacent pushes, controlling the mid. We'll see whether or not they get some sort of synergy on their picks here. Whether or not who Nico decides to be is actually fairly relevant. Kai'Sa picking up extra farms, or no, that was Nico. Kai'Sa in base. And this is how you starve people out, right? You have enough of a wallet lead that they feel afraid, that they have to feel like they step back. You can constantly move forward into their territory and take their resources away. This is how you balloon your lead. Even though they gave a lot back with that lost fight, they've rebuilt it back to 7K. Considering where it was 15 minutes ago, though, this is a huge win for Weibo. The fact that they were able to get it this far, they got to level 6. We have the Void Staffs finished on Orianna and on Rumble. I don't like that we don't have a third item Rabadons here from Ori, so we're potentially missing out. Anytime we get the Void Staff, I just feel like it's a huge miss. Comparing 65 AP to 190, it's just not close when you talk about the value of the shield and what it gives. And your own damage, it's not even that much more damage. All right. Yes, you've got the ability, and yes, you're going to go through the people in the front line who might have the most resistances anyways. But that said, your targets, your preferred targets, don't have any MR. You don't need to care about it against them. And you want that shield to be massive because you want the stats to go onto Viego so he feels comfortable going forward. BDD escaping with his flash, got the big pop, means the Shy is not able to contribute that much. Rumble Ultimate is not available anymore. They did get it down, so they got a little bit of a chunk. The Sivir Splash almost making it to Nico. Could have been a big flipped switch for them. But instead, we just take the slight little win, reset, come back, do it again, take away resources, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. AT taking a very slow, melodic approach to this. I have to feel that they feel strong enough right now, right? Like this has to be. I can't imagine there being a better spot for them because you're going to see third items being completed by Weibo, and if that happens, now that they're level 16, if they complete their items, that's the end of your lead, right? A component is meaningless when it comes down to a fight at this stage in the game. Having like a small thing, this is one of the better ones maybe, but the rest of the kit, if you don't have completed items, you're not getting the passives that are building synergies with your kit, etc., and that can be a point of weakness. If in this case, if you don't take advantage of the pull, we even see Executioner's Calling coming out from Viego. Huh? Why did you aggro the Baron? That seems like a big miss. You want them to come fight. All right, I get what they're doing. They're saying, let's do it now. We're strong enough now. Xiaohu's 18. We're good. I don't like that he doesn't have the Rabadons. Look at the Kai'Sa poke. W damage, dealing 30% of Orianna right off the bat. Jumping to the backside, going for the assassination onto Orianna. Puts himself on the side. Has Banshee's Veil available to him. Means that the team wipes the fight. Beautifully done. They're able to jump in. Trying to get the maximum stepping forward here from Rumble, but it's from Sivir, but it's not going to be enough. We'll see whether or not they step back and go for Soul plus Baron, or whether or not they just go for the end right now. 26 seconds. There's not enough time for an end. So the call should be to move back and take the Baron, and then use the buff for pressure, go up and collect the Dragon Soul when you're good and ready. Nautilus taking a recall for himself, preparing the wards potentially for the weak side. I like the idea from Weibo saying, you know what, we're getting bled out. But honestly, forcing this into a team that has been fumbling around whether or not or like what kind of fight they could ever get against you, you're kind of giving them that opportunity. I really like the way that they were playing it. If KT's not going to evolve, let them start the objective. Say we're much stronger coming into the fight second with a Rumble ultimate and a Jarvan ultimate, maybe paired with an Orianna, right? All those things can move together as one to make a difference. Kai'Sa ends up leashing. They get the shutdown for that as well, but we end up with the teleport behind. Keen saying, I'm going to start stacking Qs and prepare to knock this guy back into the team. Opting for the all-out right here, going one for, oh my goodness, using the Kai'Sa exploding damage. The fact that you have those extra stacks. Look at how much damage the W deals. Guys, if you're playing Kai'Sa in the end game, this is your play pattern. You don't get Qs. The Q is for laning phase. Q is a fake ability for the end game. You want to have it evolve so that you're strong in the earliest part of the game, but it's your W that does these tremendous chunks of damage. That's why we see this. I'm so glad to finally see someone move away from Runaan's Hurricane and going that direction on Kai'Sa. Opting instead go forward. We see BDD pop Blossom into the middle and an enthusiastic finish there from KT.